I've done jury duty one time in my life. I was in my 20s, and I remember this because I was actually very excited to be there, just to learn what the system's like and just experience the whole process. Come to find out, it's very much like the DMV, except that you're stuck there all day. And so we're there. I don't know, there are maybe 40, 50 people there. We were kind of all in this one room hanging out. And this was before smartphones. They had to bring your books to figure out what to do with your time. And I just remember most of these people were just trying to figure out how to get out of this. They didn't want to be there. They would make up a bias just so they would get excused. And in my 20s, I'm thinking, like, this is kind of our civic obligation. And this is what we're supposed to do. I guess this is jury duty. Is this what this looks like? Now, Thomas Jefferson, okay, he called this the only anchor ever yet imagined by man by which government can be held to the principles of the Constitution. But nobody wanted to be there.
Here's some advice for you. If you've never done jury duty and you get that letter in the mail that has summoned you, do everything you can to get out of it because it's a waste of your day. I just spent 8 hours in a room full of like 45, 50 people. And then they give you $25 for your day. 25.
In most states, skipping jury duty can result in a fine of up to $1,500. And in strict states like Florida, it could even land you in jail. If you show up, the court puts you through a process called voir dire. It's when lawyers ask questions to see if they trust you to be on the jury. If they don't, or just get a weird vibe, they can kick you out. No reason needed.
The guy's mustache is super weird.
It's a lifestyle. Sometimes lawyers will look at your social media to determine if they trust you. Don't worry. When jurors get low, courts can legally grab someone off the street. It's legal, but super rare.
My cream!
I just spent my entire day because I got summoned for jury duty. Got here at 8 o'clock, didn't get selected, sat in this room until 4 o'clock just for them to tell me that I can go home. I don't know if there's a more efficient process. The whole time-wasting thing was unbelievable to me.
This isn't just about jury duty either. You've got the church business meetings. Oh, I'm too busy for that. I can't make that. We got our school board meetings. It's too frustrating. Back to school nights, parents don't even show up. And you think, well, nothing changes. I'm not going to that. So we're not just avoiding jury duty. I think what's happening is that we are actually stepping away from citizenship and how we understand our role as citizens. So let's start with jury duty because this is the perfect window into what citizenship is supposed to actually look like. At least I think so. And the whole system was created with a purpose. It's not just a formality and our founders had nothing better to do. They did this really as a safeguard against power, against concentrated power, particularly in the hands of our government. And so we have things like criminal cases, fraud, financial crimes that come up. And it is people like you and me who get to sit on in theory, sit on a trial and get to decide whether the government has truly proven its case. So that's all really good. And then you've got civil cases like a car accident and the person's harmed and who's responsible, trying to figure that kind of stuff out. That's the case I sat on. It was a woman that was hit and injured by a drunk driver. And the whole reason for it, it is in theory, again, a very good system to ensure that there is fairness, that it's an impartial trial by a jury of peers, usually kind of 6 to 12, depending on what the case is, protecting our rights. And it just keeps the legal system accountable to the community, to our society. So they slow that power down and they force this entire system to explain itself to us. So I think all of that is great. And it reminds me that the justice isn't just a process and a system that is over there for other people to do. It's something that we carry together. And that's the whole point of self-government. And now things are really changing. Both sides are walking away from this. You've got our American citizens. We are withdrawing from the process. Just to put this in perspective, it was in 1962, about 5% of federal civil cases went to jury trial. But today, it's less than 1%. And on top of that, when I said we're withdrawing, in some places, nearly half of the people that are summoned to show up for jury trial don't even show up. They just don't even bother. And so that is all happening. Yet we say, Oh, well, we care about justice. We want justice, and we want corporations held accountable. We just don't want to participate in the process that makes it all possible. So we will, I mean, the protests that you see today, we will protest as much as we possibly can when there's an emotional component to it. We will talk about it online, we'll be in the streets. But at the same time that we are doing that, we are also Googling how to get out of jury duty. So you got the citizens on one hand, they're withdrawing. Then you've got the corporations that I feel like are also withdrawing, because most contracts today, I think of just any kind of service, subscription services, our phone services, the streaming that we have. If there is a dispute with one of these companies, there's typically no jury because they're doing it in private arbitration only. Like that is one of the clauses in their terms and conditions. And they do that, one, because of the expense, and because juries can work. And if you're a big company and you've got to take this case to trial, you might not want that, because when 12 people hear what a corporation knew, what they possibly hid, juries ideally, in theory, will hold them accountable. So we do what's most convenient. And I get it. Part of it is a time thing. I don't feel like I have time for this. We're skipping out on jury duty. It's got extremely low pay. Why even bother with this whole process? Corporations, they're engineering their whole, everything they do to be whatever's in their financial best interest, which I also understand as long as they keep it legal. And slowly what happens though, both sides are stepping away from the one part of the justice system that puts citizens and ordinary people in the room, which is part of our entire system of how we operate as a country, right? We are self-governing. It's by the people. And so when we're not in the room, power will always be somewhere. So where is it? If it's not in the room, then it's going to concentrate somewhere else. And over time, that is how we lose our habit of civic responsibility, which is really, 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 really important. So that's jury duty. But at some point, we realize this isn't actually a jury duty problem. I think what we have is a participation in life problem. So you got your jury duties. Over the last 60 years, jury duty trials have been down 85%. So it's like, all right, all these people withdrawing from that whole system. Then you also have things like church participation. That has dropped too. You've got just general participation that's down. And then if you are a member of a church, a lot of churches have typically like a church business meeting. And if you've ever been to these, you know how that goes. It's usually a small group of members that actually attend. I mean, you might have thousands of members to your church, and then maybe 100 or so show up to these meetings and vote. They're voting on things that affect the entire congregation. And then that power is then limited to that group simply because not everybody shows up. And it is what it is. But I've been on both sides of that. I've attended, I've skipped because I'm busy. I understand how crazy life can get. But I do think showing up matters. It really matters. And it's not just church. So over the last 50 to 60 years, civic group membership, that has declined. Maybe you're going, I don't even know what civic group membership is. I mean, think of things like Lions Club, Rotary Club, all of these things. Robert Putnam actually talked about this. He's a political scientist. He wrote about this in his book called Bowling Alone. And he was specifically referring to membership in the Rotary clubs, in the PTAs and community organizations. All of that has been dropping since the 1960s. And here's WGN News out of Chicago talking a little bit about this.
Well, founded more than 100 years ago, the Lions Club service organization facing a new challenge.
It's looking for new members to fill the ranks.
Some of them have been around for 50, 60, 70, 80 plus years.
Lions Club members raising money any way they can to help others.
Yeah, you'll see us out on the streets during Tootsie Pop days and Candy days, selling Tootsie Pops, taking donations, anything that people want to hand out to us.
The needs of the world are growing, and we need more compassionate people to grow with us.
The push for membership, part of the mission here in Grays Lake.
We're always looking for more people to join, and we have 47 members now.
Local government participation, that's down. Town halls, city council meetings, all those kinds of things, down. We're just not showing up to those things. However, at the same time, you look at what's happening on the news, we see the protests. Protest activity is like way up. And so there's a lot of data on that showing just how sharply that has grown in recent years. For example, the number of protest events in 2025 was about 133% higher than in 2017. And I think that tells us a lot about how we engage. So we will show up for a march, we will sign an online petition, we'll share the viral post, and we'll bicker about it online. But we won't show up for the church business meeting. We won't serve on juries. We won't attend the city council hearing. Although I do hear, there's some more buzz there, but it's still, everything has been kind of on that decline. And what that tells me is that we are very invested and very engaged emotionally, but so far from being engaged structurally with the systems that we have here in the United States. So one is really expressive, and that's okay, right? Like you kind of feel it and take it on, but I think that can be really dangerous if it just stays there. And we've seen what happens with that. The other way is participatory, and you're part of the system that we have put in place. And I think that is what is missing, because more often than not, we're choosing emotion and expression over that participation. And that is not civic identity. We are just acting on how we feel and what's going on in the system and the culture and all that stuff, that we haven't gone back down to logistics, our basic civic identity. And it's really hard to build anything if we can't start at that grounding point. And it's hard because no, it's not exactly the most thrilling thing to be doing with our time or that we're super excited about. It's not like going on vacation, but this is all about formation as an American citizen. And I think that's what turns just consumers of our society, like government give me, government do this for me, becomes what are we doing as American citizens in this self-governing society? And so all of that is really important. And if we skip that, we're not just missing the jury duty, we're not just missing a meeting, we lose the habit and identity that makes self-government possible. For most of our history, being American was about this participation. Our country was founded on this amazing idea that you and me can govern ourselves, that we can be willing to take on responsibility for the freedom that we have been given. That is awesome, and also requires us to participate. Alexis de Tocqueville saw this when he visited here in the 1830s. He was a French writer, French political thinker, and he wrote that juries weren't just legal bodies, they were civic schools, and they taught Americans how to reason together, deliberate together, and restrain our own sinful impulses, all for the sake of justice. And that formation used to happen everywhere, in the churches for budgets and leadership, and in our town halls where you had to go see your neighbor face to face, all those things. Even though those spaces, yes, there are going to be disagreements, they're going to be messy, it's probably going to be slow, but they served and still do serve a purpose, something very essential, which is teaching us how to live with one another without just tearing each other apart and tearing the whole thing down, actually being able to accomplish things and make progress. And I think, in addition to that, I think it can even start smaller, because a lot of what we do today and online, it's always like this over there and that over there. Where so much of this starts is at home. Think of your own family for a second. A family only works when the people show up, not just physically, but they show up, kids and spouses, everybody involved, with patience, compromise, and the willingness to sit through hard conversations. And you don't walk out of a marriage every time you disagree, and you don't stop parenting because it's inconvenient. You stay in the room, you work it out, even when it's boring at times. It's not fun. I'd rather be on vacation. And yes, when it's frustrating as well, especially then. That's formation. And if we can't do that at our dinner table, how are we going to do that in a jury room or the town hall meeting? You're not. And when those spaces weaken our family, church, and civic life, the country doesn't just become divided. We see that. But what's happening is our country's weak. It's vulnerable. And American citizens stop believing that any of it belongs to them. And that's when we hear what's the point? It doesn't matter. Nothing changes. Why bother when we're just talking and nothing changes? And little by little, we end up less free and honestly, a lot less formed. The Bible talks about freedom so much differently than we do. We have like a very different view, a skewed view. Freedom is not just doing what we want. It is freed from the things that tie us up so that we can live the way we were actually meant to live. And that kind of freedom doesn't just happen on its own. It's just not there. It takes formation, because left to ourselves, what's going to happen? We don't naturally drift toward love and justice. That is foolish to think that we do. We usually drift toward ourselves, whatever we can do for ourselves. So Paul says it this way. This is from Galatians 5:13. Let me read this to you. You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. So in other words, freedom is not the end of responsibility. It is the beginning of it. And it's interesting because when you look at scripture from the very beginning, God doesn't just hand people freedom, like, here you go, and walk away. He doesn't do that because he's forming us and constantly shaping us. And because God doesn't love rules for the sake of rules, it's because he knows us, and he knows that left to ourselves, we are not going to drift toward justice and humility, but toward pride and ego and power, all those types of things. So in many ways, I think Christ builds rhythms into our lives, things like the Sabbath, if we choose, gathering together, shared rules, people who bear witness and hold us accountable. All of that is for our good and for our freedom. And so in a lot of ways, I think that reflects and mirrors our civic life, because freedom without formation is just a shaky, terrifying foundation, very vulnerable. So whether we are talking about our spiritual lives or our life together as a country. So maybe, and just hear me out on this, jury duty is a good thing, and it's not totally outdated, okay? Because I think it might be one of the last places where the United States, America, is still asking us to be involved, part of the process, and to show up, not as an activist, but as a citizen. But dear God, we have got to make this process better. Like, we have to do something, because it's either, do I want the dentist or the DMV? It's like a combination of the two, and it doesn't have to be that way. I know it doesn't have to be that way. So anyway, it starts with showing up, participating as a citizen. And that starts at home. It starts in our churches. It starts in our community. And for way too long, we have been consumers of freedom rather than upholding the freedoms that we have been given. So jury duty is just one example, but really we have let it go in so many places. And like Thomas Jefferson said, we need that anchor. We need someone to hold the rope. And as we've let go of it, we've lost the habits that form American citizens and the shared sense of who we are. And I think that really matters. All right. Well, that is it for today. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, which I love to do, join the Inside Out community on Facebook. And I would love to know your take on jury duty. Have you ever avoided it? Have you served on one? What was that experience like for you? And more broadly, what are some of the ways that we can hold on to civic formation? And do you, like me, do you think that really matters? Or maybe you see it differently. Either way, I'd love to hear what you think. And remember to see clearly, choose wisely, and live inside out. I'll see you next time.